Welcome to the captivating realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our exciting new stories. Enjoy the journey.
The lush emerald canopy of planet Amazon's jungles extended endlessly, a vibrant ocean of alien vegetation teeming with life. Commander Lev Voronov stood at the edge of a clearing, his boots sinking slightly into the spongy violet soil. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the planet's intoxicating air. The aroma of exotic flowers blended with the earthy scent of decomposing foliage, creating a potent perfume that hinted at hidden threats and uncharted marvels. Lev's sharp blue eyes swept across the tree line, scanning for any signs of movement. His cybernetic vision detected the heat signatures of various alien creatures darting through the underbrush, yet there was no indication of the beings they had come to seek, the Amazons. The fierce warrior women who claimed this wild world as their own. Status report, Lev commanded into his wrist communicator, his tone low and gravelly. All clear on the western perimeter, sir, replied Lieutenant Yarin. No hostiles detected, but there's something strange about this place. It's too quiet. Lev nodded in agreement. The silence of the jungle felt unnatural, as though the entire ecosystem was holding its breath, waiting for something to occur. An uneasy feeling nagged at him that they were being observed, scrutinized by unseen eyes. Stay vigilant, he instructed. These Amazons are cunning, they know this terrain better than we ever could. Keep your defenses up. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught Lev's attention, a white blur against the vivid green foliage. He whirled around, raising his pulse rifle, but whatever he had seen had already vanished into the jungle. His heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Contact! He shouted into his communicator. All units, converge on my location. We have company. Hardly had the words left his mouth when chaos erupted. The air was filled with the shrill sounds of energy weapons and the heavy thud of bodies hitting the ground. Lev's trained ears picked out the frantic cries of his soldiers amidst the battle noise. They're everywhere. Watch your six. Medic. We need a medic over here. Lev sprinted towards the sounds of combat, propelled by his enhanced muscles with extraordinary speed. He burst through a curtain of hanging vines and emerged into a small clearing that had become a brutal battleground. His soldiers, clad in sleek exo armor, fought desperately in hand-to-hand combat against the Amazons. The warrior women moved with a fluid grace that defied belief, their bodies adorned with intricate tribal markings and wielding an astonishing array of both primitive and advanced weapons. Lev's eyes widened as he took in the scene. His seasoned veterans were being systematically overwhelmed. The Amazons fought with a ferocity and skill that bordered on the supernatural. Their movements a lethal dance of elegance and brutality. Then, he saw her. In the center of the fray stood a figure who made Lev's breath catch in his throat, an Amazon unlike any other. She moved like a bolt of lightning, her long white hair trailing behind her like a battle standard. Her face was a mask of cold fury, her eyes glowing with an inner fire as she effortlessly dispatched his soldiers. This had to be Lyra, the legendary leader of the Amazons. Time seemed to slow as their gazes locked across the battlefield. In that instant, Lev felt a surge of recognition as if he had known her in another life. The connection was electric, charged with a potent mix of fascination and fear. Lev's lips curled into a predatory smile as she strode purposefully toward him. Lev raised his rifle, but before he could pull the trigger, she was upon him. Her first strike sent the weapon flying from his grasp, and they were soon locked in a furious exchange of fists and feet. Lev had never faced an opponent like her. Lyra's speed and strength were otherworldly, her attacks coming from impossible angles. He barely managed to deflect her strikes, each blow sending jolts of pain through his augmented body. You don't belong here, invader, Lyra hissed, her voice a low, melodic growl that sent chills down Lev's spine. This world is not yours to claim. Lev grunted as he deflected a vicious knee strike. We come in peace, he gasped, struggling to catch his breath. We only wish to establish diplomatic relations with your people. Lyra's laugh was beautiful yet scornful. Peace. You invade our sacred forests with weapons of war and talk of peace. Your lies are as clear as the waters of the Crystal Falls. She unleashed a rapid series of strikes that forced Lev back, his boots slipping on the blood-slick ground. He felt himself weakening, his enhanced reflexes struggling to match Lyra's relentless assault. In a moment of desperation, Lev saw an opening. As Lyra prepared to deliver a powerful blow, he ducked under her guard and tackled her to the ground. They rolled across the forest floor. A tangle of limbs and fury, until Lev managed to pin her beneath him. Lyra snarled, her eyes ablaze with hatred as she fought against his grip. Finish it, then. She spat. Prove that you are no better than the monsters of our legends. Lev's chest heaved as he gazed down at her. Even in defeat, Lyra was breathtakingly beautiful, her white hair fanned out around her like a halo. He found himself captivated by her eyes, seeing not just anger, but also pain, fear, and a fierce love for her world and her people. In that moment, Lev made a decision that would change the course of both their lives forever. No, he said softly, reaching for the titanium shackles at his belt. I won't kill you, Lyra, but I cannot let you go. You are too valuable, too dangerous. With practiced efficiency, he bound her wrists and ankles, ignoring her renewed struggles and inventive curses in her native tongue as he lifted her to her feet. Lev activated his communicator. This is Commander Vornov. The Amazon leader has been captured. All units, fall back to the extraction point. We're finished here. As his remaining soldiers disengaged and began their retreat, Lev surveyed the carnage around them. The clearing was strewn with the bodies of both his men and the Amazons, a grim testament to the ferocity of the battle. Lyra's voice, low and venomous, drew his attention back to her. This isn't over. Commander. My sisters will come for me, and when they do, you'll regret not killing me when you had the chance. Lev met her gaze, seeing the fire that still burned within her despite her captivity. Perhaps, he replied. But for now, you're coming with us. And who knows? Maybe we can find a way to coexist peacefully after all. The skepticism in Lyra's eyes was unmistakable, yet there was also a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even reluctant respect. As Lev led her away from the battlefield, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning of a much larger story. The following days were tense, filled with uncomfortable silences and barely restrained hostility. Even though Lyra was imprisoned aboard Lev's starship, her presence remained a force to be reckoned with. The very air around her seemed to crackle with tension, keeping the entire crew on edge. Lev found himself visiting her holding cell more often than necessary. He told himself it was to ensure the safety of his ship and crew, but deep down, he knew there was more to it. There was something about Lyra that intrigued him, her willpower matched his own. Why do you keep coming here? Lyra asked one day, her voice dripping with disdain. She sat cross-legged on the floor of her cell, her posture relaxed despite the heavy chains that bound her. Do you take pleasure in taunting your captive? Leaning against the opposite wall with his arms crossed. Lev replied, I come because I want to understand you, Lyra. Your people. Your world. We don't have to be enemies. Lyra's laugh was sharp and bitter. Understand us? You invade our home, slaughter our warriors, and chain me like an animal. What is there to comprehend beyond your own greed and brutality? It doesn't have to be this way, Lev insisted, taking a step closer to the energy barrier that separated them. Join us. Help us bridge the divide between our peoples. With your knowledge and skills, we could forge a lasting peace. For a moment, Lyra's facade of contempt faltered, and Lev glimpsed the turmoil beneath. She moved to the edge of her cell with a grace that even her chains could not diminish. And what would you offer in exchange for my betrayal? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My freedom. Lev nodded slowly. Yes. Serve me. Serve the mission of peace, and you'll be free, you have my word. LRA's eyes flashed, and for a brief moment, I thought she might actually consider his offer. But then her expression hardened once again. "I would rather die than betray my sisters," she snarled. "Your word means nothing to me, Commander. I am Amazon, and I will remain so until my last breath." As Lev turned to leave, frustrated by her stubbornness, Lyra's voice halted him. "But know this, Elvorov," she said, using his full name for the first time. "Every moment you keep me here, every battle you force me to witness, I learn. I study your weaknesses, your strategies, and when the day comes that I break free, and it will come, I will use everything I've learned to bring you and your kind to their knees." Lev glanced back at her, recognizing the deadly promise in her eyes. Despite himself, he felt a surge of admiration. "I look forward to the challenge," he replied softly before striding away. As days turned into weeks, Lev increasingly relied on LRA's presence. Even if she refused to cooperate, he included her in strategy meetings on the bridge, valuing her insights, even when they came as harsh criticisms. Her unique perspective often unveiled flaws in their plans that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. During one of these meetings, they received an urgent transmission from a human outpost on the far side of the planet. The colony was under attack by an unknown indigenous species, massive reptilian creatures that appeared organized and were wielding advanced weaponry. "We have to help them," Lev declared, moving to issue orders to his crew. "Wait." LRA's voice cut through the chaos of the bridge. All eyes turned to her, still bound yet standing tall and regal. "The creatures you speak of are known as the Naga. They are ancient foes of my people, more dangerous than you can imagine. If you go in unprepared, you'll be slaughtered." Lev studied her face, searching for signs of deception. "Why tell us this? Why help us at all?" LRA met his gaze steadily. "The Naga are a plague upon our world. As much as I despise you and your kind, I despise them even more." She hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her features. "I've seen enough death. If you insist on this reckless rescue mission, you may as well have the information you need to survive it." At that moment, Lev made a decision that would alter everything. He stepped forward, shocking everyone present as he released LRA's restraints. "What are you doing?" she asked, genuine surprise in her voice. "Trusting you," Lev replied simply. "We need your help, LRA. Fight with us. Show us how to defeat these Naga. Do this, and when it's over, you have my word that you'll be free to return to your people." LRA rubbed her wrists cautiously. The tension on the bridge was palpable as everyone awaited her response. Finally, she gave a curt nod. "I will fight," she declared, "not for you, but for the balance of my world. The Naga must be stopped." What followed was a brutal campaign against the Naga forces. LRA proved to be an invaluable ally, her knowledge of the terrain and the enemy's tactics turning the tide in several key battles. Lev was in awe of her combat skills, watching her move like liquid lightning across the battlefield, her white hair flowing behind her like a war banner. As they fought side by side, a shift began to take place between them. Their mutual respect blossomed into a partnership, a synchronization that made them nearly unstoppable when working together. Lev started to see beyond LRA's fierce warrior exterior to the complex, passionate woman underneath. This came to a head during the final assault on the Naga stronghold. The battle was chaotic, with energy weapons lighting up the sky and the roars of dying Naga mingling with the battle cries of humans and Amazons alike. Lev and LRA found themselves cut off from the main force, surrounded by a group of elite Naga guards. "Well, Commander," LRA said with a grim smile as they stood back to back, "it seems we'll be testing the strength of your words sooner than expected. Any last regrets before we die?" Lev chuckled, a sound oddly cheerful amidst the chaos. "Just one," he replied, stealing a glance at her. "That it took a war for me to see you as you truly are." LRA's eyes widened in surprise. But before she could respond, the Naga attacked. What followed was a deadly dance, with Lev and LRA moving in perfect harmony. They anticipated each other's moves, covered each other's blind spots, and struck with devastating precision. When the last Naga fell, they stood alone in the eye of the storm, breathing heavily. LRA turned to Lev, her expression a mix of exhilaration and confusion. Why? She asked simply. Lev knew she wasn't referring to the battle. He stepped closer, his heart racing for reasons unrelated to combat. Because you've changed everything, LRA. The way I see this world, this mission, and you. They stood there for a moment, the sounds of battle fading into the background. Then, with a suddenness that took Lev's breath away, LRA closed the distance between them and kissed him fiercely. It was a kiss fueled by fire and fury, shared battles, and a grudging respect that had deepened into something more. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily, and the world around them seemed to have shifted. As your mate? LRA asked, a challenge glinting in her eyes. Lev met her gaze steadily. If that's what you want, he said, but only if you choose it freely. LRA remained silent for a moment, her eyes locked on his. When she spoke, her voice was soft yet firm. I choose to stay, she said, not for you, not for your people, but for the possibility of something new, something that could bridge the gap between our worlds. Lev felt a wave of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. He reached out cautiously, taking LRA's hand in his. To his surprise and joy, she didn't pull away. Then let us build that bridge together, he said. In the following months, Lev and LRA worked tirelessly to create a new alliance between humans and Amazons. It was a challenging task, centuries of mistrust and misunderstanding lay between their peoples, and many on both sides viewed their union with suspicion and hostility. However, slowly but steadily, progress was made. LRA's influence among her people, combined with Lev's status within the human hierarchy, allowed them to navigate the treacherous waters of interspecies diplomacy. They faced assassination attempts, political sabotage, and the constant threat of renewed conflict, but through it all, their bond only grew stronger. 1 year after the defeat of the Naga, Lev and LRA stood together on a newly constructed platform at the edge of the Amazon jungle. Before them was a vast crowd of humans and Amazons standing side by side, their faces a mix of curiosity, hope, and lingering wariness. Lev stepped forward, his voice resonating across the assembled crowd. Today, he began, we take the first step toward a shared future. A future where our differences are not a source of conflict but a wellspring of strength. LRA joined him, her white hair shining in the alien sunlight. For too long, we have seen each other as enemies, she added. But in our darkest hour, we found that we are stronger together than we ever were apart. As they spoke, outlining their vision for a cooperative future, Lev marveled at how far they had come. He recalled the fierce warrior who had nearly killed him in their first encounter, the proud captive who had resisted all his overtures. Now, she stood not only as his equal but as his partner in every sense of the word. The ceremony concluded with the signing of a historic peace treaty, but for Lev and LRA, it was only the beginning. As the crowd dispersed and dignitaries retreated to their private meetings, the couple found a moment alone. Do you ever regret it? Lev asked, taking LRA's hand in his. Choosing to stay. LRA's smile was answer enough, but she replied anyway. Never, she said. Though I must admit there are times when I miss the simplicity of hating you, Lev laughed, pulling her close. I'm sure I can find ways to annoy you from time to time just to keep things interesting. Their laughter was interrupted by the sudden blaring of alarms. Lev's communicator crackled to life, filling the air with panicked voices. Commander, we're detecting multiple incoming signatures. It's an invasion fleet. They aren't responding to hails. Lev and LRA exchanged a grim look of determination. Whatever this new threat was, they would confront it together. Looks like our honeymoon will have to wait, LRA said, already moving toward the command center. Lev fell into step beside her, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. With you by my side, he said, I almost feel sorry for whoever is coming. As they rushed to meet this new challenge, Lev realized that despite the danger, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, he had never felt more alive. With LRA by his side, Lev was prepared to confront whatever challenges the universe would present. The invasion fleet proved to be far more powerful than anyone had anticipated. Enormous ships blotted out the skies of planet Amazon, their sleek obsidian exteriors unlike anything previously seen in the galaxy. They descended through the atmosphere with an unsettling silence, showcasing technology that surpassed that of both humans and Amazons. Lev stood at the center of the hastily organized war room, surrounded by a mix of human officers and Amazon warriors. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they monitored the holographic display of the invaders' movements. "What are we facing?" Lev asked. His voice tense. An Amazon scout, her face adorned with intricate war paint, stepped forward. "We've never encountered anything like them, Commander. They're not Naga, nor any species we know. It's as if they emerged from nowhere." Lev squinted at the display. "Look at their formation," she continued, pointing to the descending ships. "It's deliberate. They're establishing a perimeter, blocking all escape routes." Lev grimly nodded. Whoever they were, they had experience. This is a strategic invasion. As if on cue, the alien ships unleashed a barrage of fire. Beams of scorching energy shot down, wreaking havoc on the jungle and the newly constructed structures of human-Amazon collaboration. "All units, battle stations." Lev bellowed into his communicator. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." LRA was already in motion, her white hair a blur as she dashed towards the armory. "I'll gather my sisters," she called back. "We'll need every warrior if we're to stand a chance." The ensuing hours were a whirlwind of chaos and urgency. Human dropships and Amazon riders engaged the alien crafts in aerial combat, while on the ground, a hastily assembled force of humans and Amazons fought back against the invading landing parties. Lev found himself immersed in the fighting, directing the defense from a mobile command unit. Throughout the ordeal, LRA remained a steadfast presence. Her combat skills as extraordinary as ever. They moved in harmony, compensating for each other's weaknesses and amplifying their strengths. Yet, despite their relentless efforts, the battle began to shift against them. The alien technology was simply too advanced, their numbers overwhelming. For every invader they took down, two more seemed to appear. As dusk fell on the first day of the invasion, Lev and LRA found themselves cornered in the ruins of what had once been the peace treaty signing platform. The irony was not lost on either of them. "We can't maintain this," Lev said, his voice raspy from issuing commands and inhaling the smoke of battle. "We need a new strategy." LRA nodded. Dirt and blood streaked across her face. "I might have a plan," she replied, "but it's risky, possibly suicidal." Lev managed a strained smile. "Those are my preferred kinds of plans." "What do you suggest?" LRA's eyes sparkled with determination. "The Crystal Falls," she stated. "The sacred heart of our world. Legends say it holds unimaginable power. If we can harness that energy, it could change everything." Lev recalled her stories of the Crystal Falls, a place of mystical energy off-limits to outsiders. "But you said it's dangerous and unpredictable." "It is," LRA affirmed. "Many have tried to master its power, none have succeeded. But we have no alternative. It's either this or watch our world perish." Lev weighed their options, which were few and grim. Finally, he nodded. "All right," he said, "let's go for it." "How do we reach it?" LRA's fierce smile was radiant. "We fly," she replied simply. What followed was a frantic race against time. LRA summoned her pterosaur, a stunning creature with iridescent scales and a wingspan that darkened the sky. As they soared above the battlefield, Lev clung to LRA's waist, awestruck by the bond between rider and beast. The journey to the Crystal Falls was fraught with peril. They dodged energy blasts from alien ships, weaved through aerial dogfights, and at one point had to fend off a pursuing craft armed only with Lev's sidearm and LRA's bow. When they finally reached the falls, Lev was captivated. A towering cascade of crystal-clear water tumbled from impossibly high cliffs, glimmering in every conceivable color. The air vibrated with energy, sending chills down his spine. "Now what?" Lev asked as they dismounted. Lyra approached the edge of the pool at the base of the falls, a mix of reverence and resolve on her face. "Now," she declared, "we plead with the spirit of Amazon for our worthiness." Before Lev could ask what she meant, Lyra plunged into the shimmering waters without hesitation. Lev followed her. As soon as he hit the water, Lev felt an electrifying jolt coursing through him. Every nerve sang with energy, his consciousness expanding to embrace realms of power and knowledge he had never conceived. Beside him, Lyra radiated a celestial light, her white hair flowing around her like a cosmic mane. In that moment of transcendence, Lev realized that the crystal falls were not just a source of power, they were the living essence of planet Amazon, a convergence of energies that connected every living being on the planet. Lyra's voice resonated in his mind, though her lips remained still. "Do you see now? Do you understand what we must do?" Lev nodded, words unnecessary in this realm of pure thought and energy. Together, they reached out with their minds, linking with the vast network of life that pulsed through the planet. They sensed the fear and determination of humans and Amazons fighting for their homes. And they perceived the alien invaders, their minds cold and calculating, driven by an insatiable hunger. Beneath it all, they felt the steady heartbeat of Amazon itself, a world alive and conscious in ways Lev had never imagined. With a shared thought, Lev and Lyra made their request. They showed the spirit of Amazon the looming threat, the devastation that would ensue if the invaders triumphed. They offered themselves as conduits, vessels through which the world's power could flow. For a moment that felt eternal, there was silence. Then, with a surge of energy that nearly overwhelmed them, the spirit of Amazon responded. Power surged through them, raw and primal. Lev felt as if he was ablaze from within. His body barely containing the energies coursing through him. Together, they ascended from the waters of the crystal falls, hovering above the battlefield. Every eye, human, Amazon, and alien, turned to witness their rise. Lev's voice, amplified by the power coursing through him, reverberated across the planet. "You who seek to destroy this world," he declared, "know that it does not stand alone. We are its guardians, its children, and we will not be defeated." Lyra raised her arms, and the very earth responded. Vines erupted from the ground, ensnaring the alien ships. The winds roared at her command, tossing smaller crafts like leaves in a tempest. Lightning crackled from her fingertips, each bolt finding its mark with unerring precision. Lev concentrated on defense, creating shimmering barriers of energy to shield the beleaguered defenders. He reached out with his mind, orchestrating the counterattack with a clarity and precision that bordered on foresight. Together, they changed the course of battle. The alien invasion, once seemingly unstoppable, began to falter in the face of their combined strength. Ships plummeted from the sky, invaders fled in terror, and the defenders rallied with renewed hope and determination. As the dust settled and the last of the alien vessels retreated into the vastness of space, Lev and Lyra stood at the dawn of a new era for planet Amazon. The shared struggle against the invaders had united humans and Amazons in ways no treaty ever could. The distinctions between the two peoples began to blur, giving rise to a unique hybrid culture that embodied the best of both worlds. In the months that followed, as they worked tirelessly to rebuild their war-torn planet, Lev and Lyra's bond, shaped by their shared experience in the Crystal Falls, became a connection that transcended mere attraction or companionship. They were two halves of a whole, their spirits intertwined in a way neither fully understood but both cherished. One warm evening, as they watched the 3 moons of Amazon rise over the newly restored Peace Tree platform, Lev turned to Lyra with a question that had been weighing on his heart. "Lyra," he said softly but filled with emotion, "on my world, we have a tradition. When 2 people love each other and wish to spend their lives together, they get married. I know it may seem strange to you, but would you honor me by becoming my wife?" LRA's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with understanding and love. Lev, she replied, a smile gracing her lips, on my world, we do not have a term for marriage, but I would be honored to stand with you as your partner in all things. Lev's heart soared as he pulled her into a passionate embrace, the promise of their future resonating in the space between them. Together, they would navigate the challenges of a world still healing from the wounds of invasion. Together, they would forge a new path for both humans and Amazons, united in purpose, love, and an unbreakable bond. As they stood side by side beneath the glowing moons, Lev knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning.